Brilliant. So before we start into our main meeting this morning, I'm just going to screen share with you quickly, just so that we can share a few key things that are coming up. Hopefully you can now see my screen. Brilliant, I can see some thumbs up, that's great. Just going to see if it will screen share for me, but it's been a bit slow this morning. Try that one more time. There we go. Right, so before we move into our meeting, we will just start with a quiet moment of prayer, just a moment to reflect as we start our meeting together. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to gather together today. Help us to learn from each other, to share wisely, and to listen intently as we explore issues and opportunities that face our schools. We thank you for the recent Christmas break and the chance to slow down, to be with family and friends, and to refresh our heart, mind, and body. We ask you to give us the strength, energy, and commitment we need to serve our schools, pupils, and communities over the coming term. In Jesus' name, amen. Right, before we move, I'm just having technical issues this morning. Will my slide move on? There we go. I'm just going to run through the key areas of focus for us this morning. So we're going to start by welcoming James Hodges from Rock UK Christian Centre. He's going to be talking to you about what the centre can offer in terms of residential trips for children. Richard Hopkins, then, one of our school advisors and a SIAMS inspector, is here to share some key information about the new SIAMS framework that begins in September 2023. We have our update from Mike Simmons, our governance consultant, talking all things governance with you. And then we have a video update from Ruth Everett, our RE lead. Our aim is to try and get through this within the hour. It is quite tight on timing, but we will be as close to that hour as we possibly can. Just to flag a few key things for you that are coming up, just to make sure that you're aware of them. Our Church School Leadership course has just reopened. The applications have opened for the 23-24 cohort. That course is run by our diocese in conjunction with St Albans, and it is suitable for all current church school leaders or aspiring leaders. We've had all sorts of different people on the course, from Senkos to collective worship leads, RE leads, head of schools, head teachers, deputies. It really is a wide audience. It includes 2 residentials and 2 seminar days. And within the programme, delegates are expected to do an action research project in their school so they can demonstrate impact in school. And the venue for the upcoming cohort will actually be slightly more local than it has in the past. Will be at Pleshy Retreats House near Chelmsford. And the cost will be £800 plus VAT. All the information and more detail is on our website. So if you're interested in that for yourself or for anybody else within your team, do go and have a look on the website and get that application in. I just wanted to remind everyone as well of the termly networking opportunities that we've developed. So we have our RE network meetings that take place each term. Those always run at 4 to 5 p.m. so that teachers can access them. So we've got one coming up on the 31st of January. The next one is the 16th of May. So again, do go to our website to register. We've also started this academic year with collective worship network meetings for the collective worship lead in school. Again, they both run at 4 p.m. so that they're outside of teaching hours for any collective worship leads who also teach. And the next one is the 7th of February. And then in the summer, there'll be one on the 23rd of May. And then just to draw attention to the fact that our next Leaders and Governors virtual briefing takes place at the beginning of the summer term on the 25th of April. You hopefully will have seen that we've been launching a new series of collective worship resources this academic year, and they've been fitting into key Christian festivals. You're provided with a video. The example you can see on the screen is the Epiphany worship that we recently launched. The video there was put together by Bishop Gully, and then there's a series of collective worship ideas and some PowerPoint slides that you can use within your school to celebrate those key festivals. The next one that will be launched will be in time for Lent, so do look out for that with your Lent resources. And then finally, I just wanted to draw attention again to the Church of England MPQs. We've spoken about those many times before. We've had people here to talk to you about them, but it's worth mentioning that the applications are open for the February 23 cohort. So if you've got anybody who's suitable for that, now is the time to go to the website and have a look. They continue to be fully funded at the moment. There's never a guarantee as to how long that funding will continue for, but at the moment they're fully funded for you. You can see the list on the screen of the different MPQs that are available. And if you'd like further information, then if you just Google Saffron Teaching Schools Hub, their website's brilliant. You'll be able to find out all the information that you will need on there. Right, I'm just going to stop sharing. Okay, so that's the quick introduction and overview of a few key things that are coming up from me. What I would like to do now is to welcome James Hodges, who is here from Rock UK Christian Centre. And James, I will hand over to you.
Thank you. Good morning. Thanks so much for inviting me along to, I feel like I'm gate crashing your briefing. So hopefully this next wee while will be informative, helpful, and a flavour of who Rock UK are, history, and where we're positioned with regards to providing school residentials. I promise, even though I'm the sales and marketing director, I will endeavour not to do a sales pitch for you. Hopefully you'll come away thinking, oh, he was a really nice guy, must remember him, and we'll make sure that some of the information that he's shared will be useful for us when we're looking at residentials for our schools. So I've pulled together a brief presentation. I know we've been using Zoom for what seems to be forever. However, I don't really know how to share my screen. So maybe could someone give me, I need a tutorial.
Hopefully, James, I have given you sharing right. Yeah. So you should now have a green button in the middle at the bottom that says share screen.
Yeah, one participant can share at the same time. Okay, right. Can you see that?
We can, I think.
Great, okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to expand it onto the screen. Can everybody see that?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
So, thank you, Heather, for giving me the thumbs up there. Okay, so thank you again for inviting me. And I don't know whether it's too late to say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. Happy New Year to you all. I hope the 2023 has started well for yourselves. And thank you again for inviting me. Just a sort of outline of the presentation is just share a bit about Rock UK. If you don't know who we are, where our centres are, and a brief overview of what we do. And then I thought what would be useful is maybe just sharing some themes around making residentials happen during this time of challenging finances. Not that finances are never challenging within the education sector, absolutely understand that, but here's some ideas that we've sort of created as resources to help schools and some of our partner organisations to navigate some available finances, which I hope will be useful. I have put in a time of questions, but hopefully I'll answer some of those within the presentation, but please, I'll share my email address and contact details at the end as well if we don't get time. Okay, so a quick whistle stop tour of who Rock UK are. You can see, hopefully you'll be, some of you guys will be working with some of our centres. We've got Frontier Centre in Northampton, Summit Centre, which I know that St Thomas's of Canterbury Brentwood School come to Summit Centre in South Wales, which is great. Parity Wood, which is in Kent, and Whitworth Park, which is in the Scottish borders. I guess, I could wax lyrical, having been an instructor, having seen the impact of young people as they tiptoe and creep over the edge of an abseiling tower, how young people have gathered and children have gathered together to build their own raft and then see it successfully launch and float, through to seeing the faces of teachers and support workers being overwhelmed as they see that young person who's shy retiring in class come out of their shell and share ideas and become more confident. But I've just put a couple of quotes there. One from Lily, who was a young year 6 who came on a residential with us, and these were some of the thoughts that she shared right at the very end of her 5-day 4-night residential with us. The abseiling really helped with her confidence. Also the raft building. I think one of the things that we love is it's okay to fail. We create a safe space for young people and children to fail and then learn and understand that it's okay to make mistakes and how other people can help them and support them through that. And then I guess, you know, the question on all our lips when we invest so much time as heads and your teaching staff and the governor's encouraging this extra, you know, these residentials, what impact does it have? What does it make? What difference does it make within the classroom when they're back after having made rafts, canoed with others, launched themselves off the high ropes? And I guess this quote, our pupil develop much more confidence and self-belief, is beginning to step outside of their comfort zone in the class challenges and situations. I think, again, that kind of sums up for me very briefly, but succinctly, what difference a 1, 3, 5-day trip to on residential can have, and the impact that can have, the long-term impact that can have. We're a Christian charity, and we've been around for 100 years now, running outdoor residential trips. In fact, last year was our centenary, which was great. 100 years of having an impact, working with schools, and youth groups, in order to get young people to step out of their comfort zones and have a lifelong, learn lifelong skills, become more confident. Our programs that we run are focused programs. They support age ranges, you know, whether it's that transitioning group in their year 5, year 6, through to senior schools who are looking at how do we build resilience, how do we enable young people to become, develop their decision-making skills. And what we endeavour to do with all our learning, the programs that we run, we tailor them to your values, your learning objectives.
You just listen to it for me. All right.
And
okay,
curriculums and learning frameworks, as the new SCIAM framework, which was really interesting to hear that's due to be launched in September or later on this year. So that's really good. Tailored trips around 1, 3, and 5 days. They're residential, but we recognise that since COVID, you know, getting young people out takes time, and we've adjusted our programs in order to create a flexibility around saying, okay, if you're local to one of our centres, come for the day, experience what it's like, take that step into helping young people to expand their horizons and stretch their boundaries. We've got 4 adventure centres around the UK. I think they're in great geographic locations with regards to, we've got a hub right here in the Northampton, through to our more adventurous centres over in South Wales, Witham and Carity Wood down in Kent, which works well with that Southern Essex, Greater London area. Year groups, we can work with from sizes through from a small group, you know, a rural school with only 10 in their class, through to a much more urban setting of school with multiple year groups of 100, 200 pupils. So we've got the size and capacity to support that through the various centres that we run. And obviously we run a wide range of adventures, from climbing and abseiling to water sports. And our instructional staff, we invest so much time in order for them to have that, create that safe space for young people to explore about who they are. So why choose Rock UK? I guess, you know, one of the questions that is, you know, talking to the, you know, schools with a real Christian message, vision, values like yourselves, is why choose Rock UK, a Christian organisation. And I guess for me, it's summed up in these few points. There's an alignment of vision and mission. You know, I guess, you know, one of the visions, missions is a vision for Church of England schools is around, you know, creating a space of a Christian space where young people can understand Jesus's promise of life in its fullness. That matching of values, you know, around wisdom, knowledge, integrity, and developing that sense of community and living well together when they come away on a residential centre. And I guess, you know, ensuring that young people flourish together. They realise that together they can achieve so much more. And for me, you know, Rock UK is, albeit, when I look back, and I had the real pleasure of looking back through our archives last year, of seeing some of the adventures that we've done, the locations that we've had and been over the last 100 years. I use that phrase of the location or the adventures might have changed, but our mission is very much the same. Our purpose is about enabling young people to come into a safe, exciting place to explore faith, learning, and adventure. So I guess one of the things that when I was preparing the presentation was wanted just to share very briefly some ideas around how do we make a residential happen, and especially when we're faced with shrinking budgets both and challenging resources both within the school environment but also within the family and home environment. I honestly, I'm sure that you're all over that element of how to utilise pupil premium and sports premium. I guess one of the things on the sports premium is that we have adopted an approach of how do we ensure that an outdoor activity promotes those sort of areas of well-being and are connected to that PE theme. So, you know, that's something that we've really sort of embraced as part of our programs. But I guess one of the things that maybe you're not aware of is our Rock UK bursary funds. And with regards to the bursary fund, it was something that it's been running for around 10 years now, is that something that we really were conscious of, that schools and a school group coming together where no child misses out has a much more longer term impact on the young person, that child's personal development. And so we, as a charity, as a Christian charity, we made a real conscious effort of how do we ensure that no child misses out. And one of the things that we did was we created the Rock UK Bursary Fund, which, like I say, has been running for over 10 years now. Our small grant fund, which is supported by external donors, has provided and supported over 2,100 children, has issued £200,000 in grants, and we've been delighted to be able to make sure that 2,100 children who would have missed out on what we see, and I'm sure as educators yourselves see, is a key part of their personal development. Ways we can support you in addition to our bursary fund is TYSO. Who loves a good old what's the name, an acronym or whatever, is Turn Your School Orange, and we have a pack, a team who can come out and support you in turning your school orange. As you can see, I'm wearing an orange t-shirt. I don't work for EasyJet in my part-time. Well, our branding is orange. It's great. It means that I can see, people can see me when I'm walking around the centres, but also we can always see where our instructors are. So that's great. And Turning Your School Orange is adventure-based themes and activities that schools can adopt and do some fundraising and have a bit of fun. Like I say, our small grants program has been running for 10 years now, and basically we do the fundraising in order to be able to issue those small grants through to the schools. And one of the things that we've kind of are on a journey with, and this is something that we are working more with, is with partner schools who have a specific need, and we partner with you in creating an application, a grant application through to our charitable donors, which helps us really have, I'm working with a school out down in Slough, significant area of recognised area of deprivation socially, and area of high English as a second language, low income families. And by working together, we're able to create this really strong case study, as it were, to our donors in order to raise enough funds to get 75 young people, children, year sixes, to come on residential with us and not miss out on their adventure. I guess something else just to consider is when you're looking, your teams are looking at booking a residential, is don't be put off by geographical location. You know, we've got centres across the various points of the UK, and actually, you know, okay, we've got to get you there, but we can maybe support you in your travel costs, maybe support you. So it's something to consider is, don't be put off by our centres in Scotland or in Wales. It's always worth having a conversation with us. Peak and off-peak seasons, absolutely. I know that every school, if I had multiple centres that we could open just for May, June, July, we'd be full. And those are key months because of SATs or the reason, you know, an end of year celebration. But I guess, you know, one of the things that I would encourage you is to consider coming maybe September, October, November, because actually, why not set your school years up for success at the start of the year, bond them together. So something just to consider. Another thing is we are encouraging clustering around, you know, schools where maybe minimum numbers within the centres aren't being met. So maybe something, again, we're happy to support with that. And then activity mix. We're very fortunate, blessed to have our centres where we can be really flexible about. One minute you could be doing, you know, half the day you could be gorge walking, and in the afternoon, because of the space, the learning areas, you could be, these could be activities that are led by your own staff. So, as I say, it was a whistle-stop tour. I thank you so much again for inviting me along. In the last 15 minutes, I've shared a bit about who we are, what we do, 100 years of outdoor residentials. We're a Christian charity which is bold enough to talk about our Christian values, help young people and your schools explore what faith means to them through having an adventure. I've given you some ideas around making residentials happen, especially with these challenges around finances at this moment in time. I'm not sure whether I've got time for questions, but please, there's my email, mobile number. I'm on LinkedIn, James Hodges. I'm probably the only person wearing an orange t-shirt who works for, other than someone maybe a random James Hodges who might work for EasyJet. And we're on Twitter as well, always sharing some good top tips, but also sharing the adventures of the young people in the schools that come and visit us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, James. It's really interesting to hear all about Rock UK and the opportunities that you provide. We haven't got time for questions, unfortunately. James's email has been on the screen, but James, if you could perhaps pop it in the chat as well, and then anybody who hasn't got it can pick it up from there. I'm going to hand straight over to Richard now, who's going to talk to us about the SIAMS framework that's coming in September.
Great, thank you so much. I'm just going to share my screen. Just bear with me a second. Okay, I hope you can see what I'm sharing with you. It's a SIAMS framework, September 2023. Happy New Year! It's great to see some very old friends on the screen and some new friends as well. Happy New Year to everybody. Those of you who don't know me, my name's Richard. I'm a schools advisor. I'm just at the end of training to become a SIAMS inspector as well, which is an interesting one because I'm kind of doing all the training on the old framework, but also being trained in the new framework. You should know if your school is on the list to be inspected this year. If that's the case, you will be inspected under the old framework. I'm going to talk to you just for a few minutes about the new framework. I'm going to share some edited highlights, and we've only got time for edited highlights today, about how you can expect things to be different if you are one of the vast majority of schools who will be inspected by SIAMS after September 2023. Having said which, I'm struggling to get on to the next slide, for which I apologize. Hang on a second. Excuse me a second, I'm just going to have to stop sharing. And then, just bear with me, I do apologize. If I now share again, and then if I go to share from the beginning, good. Sorry, it's a quirk. I remember now, it's a quirk of Zoom that you have to share after you've actually, or you have to go into the slideshow after you've started sharing. Okay, so the new framework is what SIAMS describe as a qualitative judgment rather than a quantitative grade. So headline number one, the excellent, good, RI and ineffective grades will no longer be used. It will just be qualitative judgments instead. Judgment 1 to 7, I'll come on to that in a few minutes. Key headlines that you need to know about is that what SIAMS are trying to achieve is what they claim is coherence across the method. I'll explain that in a little bit more detail in a moment. Some things are just the same though, just the same. I think SIAMS felt that some of the important aspects of inspection were not really getting through to schools, so they wanted to emphasize them more. So a key thing is that SIAMS should not drive school vision. That was always the case anyway. You should have a Christian vision that is the right vision for you, not the right vision for SIAMS. Theologically, what's now called theologically rooted Christian vision, very, very important. It used to be called theologically underpinned. It was always there, but SIAMS felt that Christian visions were not actually sufficiently theologically underpinned. They now call it theological rooting. People can be a bit scared of this because they think, hang on a minute, I'm a teacher, I'm not a theologian, I'm not a vicar. We can help you with that. We'll do various training along the way, although if I could draw your attention to a session that we're doing on Monday, the 27th of February in Chelmsford, focusing specifically on this question of how do you provide theological rooting for your Christian vision. You can sign up to that on our website. If you can't find that, just ask your diocesan advisor and they will point you in the right direction. Schools context. This was always really, really important, but nevertheless, SIAMs were frustrated because they thought too many so-called Christian visions were just generic. So they really want to emphasize what was there anyway, which is that your vision must reflect your context. Okay, and again, the training that we do along the way, we can help you to reflect upon the context of your school to come up with a vision that is right for your school. Getting away from one-size-fits-all criteria, particularly the tick boxy. SIAMs were frustrated. They felt that what they'd inherited as a new national team was too tick boxy. If you do this, do this, do this, and do this, you'll be okay. There is an element of that, and they want to get rid of that. Personally, I think that's a jolly good thing because you can express the Christian vision of your school in the way that you think is right for your school. And then another thing is that, of course, over recent years, more and more schools have become academies, and under the old system, there wasn't an easy means to hold trust leaders, academy trust leaders, to account for what was going on in their schools. Often they wouldn't get involved in the inspection process at all. Maybe a school that is a trust might have a local school board, for example, or a local governing body, and they would deal with the governance side of things. SIAMs didn't like that. They want people from the trust at a more senior level to be getting involved. Okay, so what we've got here is a new structure where instead of the 7 strands, which you may or may not be familiar about, we've got some questions instead with a certain degree of overlap, but not entirely overlap. The 7th question is just for VA schools about denominational religious education. That was always in there anyway. It's focusing on impact and typical school practice. In theory, that should have always been there. I mean, we should always have been focusing on impact. That 4th bullet is important, though. It does not expect any specific strategies, resources, etc. Some aspects of the framework were tick boxy things like, you've always got to light a candle in worship. Well, says who? You could have the best worship in the world that didn't have a candle in it. You could have some pretty less good worship that did have a candle. So getting rid of that kind of tick boxy approach, and then they want the whole process to be much more collaborative than it was before. I mean, the one follows from the other. If it's not tick boxy, then it has to be collaborative because the inspector has to talk to school leaders to actually find out what is the relevant evidence. As I've said, it makes these judgments instead of grades. So you see that the way they describe it is radically different, radically the same. So you see on the left things that are different, and you're getting these judgments. You're not getting the grades. You've got this strong emphasis on school context, which should have been there anyway, but they're emphasizing it even more. Outcomes, not methods, no tick lists. But there are some things that are absolutely the same. Christian vision. It is the Christian vision, the impact of your school's chosen Christian vision that is being inspected. If your school doesn't have a clearly stated Christian vision, there's nothing to inspect, which is a little bit of a problem. Collective worship, RE and SMSC remain the most important things. That is because they are the 3 things that are actually name checked in Section 48 of the 2005 Act, under which this inspection takes place. They have to be there. And radically the same is obviously evidence-based. That's the obvious. You're not going to make any judgments that are not based on actual evidence. Okay. So this is what you need to have really in the front of your mind as the key things. It's this theologically rooted Christian vision. So you've got to have a vision. Is it really genuinely theologically rooted? Not just a secular vision with a Bible verse stuck on the bottom. That doesn't equal Christian rootedness. Not just sticking the words in our Christian school or in our Christian community on the beginning of a secular vision. That doesn't give it theological rooting either. Like I say, if you're interested in this, join us on the 27th of Feb, or talk to your school advisor, who will also be able to help you. Drilling into trust governance as well as school governance. It's about conversations with school and trust leaders. It's about what they like to describe as high-level questions, and it is about having the expectation that there will be a very strong relationship either with the diocese, if you're not an academy, or with your multi-academy trust and the diocese if you are. Again, that was always there, but they're emphasizing it even more. So please do reflect upon how you perceive your relationship with the diocese to be, and how you might want that to be stronger, and how it can help to make it stronger. The school, in preparation for the inspection, is required to ask itself these 3 questions. Don't have time to drill into these now, but there's more information on our website about it, or you can talk to your school advisor about it, or you can even get in touch with me direct about it if you would like to as well. Who are we? They're all fairly straightforward questions. And again, there's additional ones there. What are we doing here? This is about the vision and the context. What are we doing here? What are we actually doing here that's different from what someone's doing somewhere else? Because of where we are, and there's various questions related to this. These slides, by the way, are all available on our diocesan website if you want to look at them more slowly at your leisure. And then we have these key inspection questions. And this is, those of you who are familiar, the outgoing framework will recognize this as being the overarching question anyway, which is what it's all about, which is the theologically rooted Christian vision. How does it enable adults and pupils to flourish? So that's the same. So it's not about how does the school enable adults and pupils to flourish. It's not about how do leaders or governors or a local church enable this to happen. It's about how does your Christian vision enable it to happen. The Christian vision reflected in the broader curriculum. That was always there before, and it's still here again. And there's questions related to that you can see there. Collective worship, how does that enable adults and pupils to flourish spiritually? So this is kind of taking that spiritual development thing that used to be in the old Strand 2 and making it much more about collective worship, very much saying that is what the collective worship is there to do, to help pupils and adults to flourish spiritually. So you've still got that thing which again was there in the old framework but has more emphasis now about what do you actually mean in your school by spiritual development, and what does it look like if a pupil and indeed if a member of staff actually develops spiritually in your school. How do you consider somebody to have successfully developed spiritually by the time they've been in your school for a few years? Such a question. Adults and pupils treated well. Okay, so again, mental health, well-being, inclusion, where you deal with vulnerable people. I've always maintained that the SEND, the way that SEND is managed in our schools, is incredibly important. Sometimes when I talk to head teachers about this, they say, well, SEND, that's more of an Ofsted thing, not a science thing. No, it's not. SEND is incredibly important. And how does SEND link into your Christian vision? Not just are you doing it well, which I'm sure you are, but are you doing it in a way which actually leverages off your Christian vision to enable those SEND pupils and vulnerable pupils to flourish in your school? You've got the active culture of justice and responsibility, particularly courageous advocacy. That was always important. It's just as important as it was, if not more so. It's not new. It's not new, but the expectation is that it should be there. So really reflect upon that. There's a document you can read about that, and again, you can talk to your school advisor for more information about that. Is religious education effective? So this is the question was asked to everybody, both VA form of VA and VC form of VC. So this is about the way in which, if you're a VC or form of VC, yes, you take the locally approved syllabus. Maybe not if you form a VC, but we won't drill into that now. But you take the locally approved syllabus, but how do you actually teach it in a way that is consistent with your Christian vision, reflects your Christian vision, and therefore makes it not just a curriculum that you deliver, but something that has an effective impact in your school? That question's for everybody. Then you've got the 7th question, which is just for the voluntary aided schools, all those schools which now teach something called denominational education. If you're not sure whether that applies to your school or not, again, talk to your school advisor who will explain that to you. And that's when actually, again, by law, SIAMs have to make a judgment about the actual quality of the teaching and the quality of the outcomes in RE. Then you get these judgments. So you'll be given a judgment J1 to J7, and they will simply say that yes, you are doing this thing effectively, or you are not doing it effectively. That's what it means at the bottom of the screen there, where it says putting the school into one of 2 categories. So judgment 1, again, you can see here that the school is living up to its foundation as a church school. That's a really important concept, the concept of your foundation as a church school. Yes, it was in the old framework, but the old framework didn't really emphasize it as much as the new one does. That's why we've got foundation governors. Do you know what it means to be a foundation governor? Do you actually know what this word foundation means in the context of your school? If not, don't worry, your school advisor can help you, and actually your foundation governors should be able to explain that to you as well. Or you'll end up with the judgment J2, which is that this is not happening. If that's the case, the inspector will have to give that, explain that for the following reasons. You see here, this is just saying how the J2 judgment would be worded across the different 7 questions. It's obvious, you can see for yourself how that works. It's stating that it could be one or it could be more than one of those 7 questions. You get a J2, which is a statement that actually the inspector is not able to find sufficient evidence that the school is doing this sufficiently well. As you see, that goes across the 7 questions. So if a school is to be given a J2 on any of the 7 questions, then this is the implication of that. You'll be told the areas in which you need to focus by the inspector, and as it says, any permutation is possible under J2. So what will it actually mean for you in school, these changes? Well, again, you can see some of which we've mentioned already. It's not changing what it means to be a church school. That's established in law. SIAMS does not have the right in law to change that. All SIAMS are doing is changing the way in which they inspect that and try and find it out. Firm expectation of theologically rooted Christian vision. For those of you familiar with this stuff, you know that was always the case anyway, but the expectation is even higher. Freedom from the one-size-fits-all criteria, which is very, very important. Now, if you end up getting 1 or more J2s in your judgments, this is the consequence that you will be offered in that area extra diocesan intervention support to help you in that area, and the school will be re-inspected more quickly. That was never the case before under the old framework. You were always kind of on this 5-year, or at least a pre-COVID 5-year cycle, regardless of what the judgment was. This is better because, of course, if your judgment highlights that you need to take action, then you don't want to have to wait 5 years for someone to come back to actually validate the fact that you've taken that action. Okay. The legislation is about inspecting schools, not trusts, but trusts are going to come much more in the spotlight here. So you may have trust leaders, if you are an academy, who are not conscious of this stuff. If that's the case, I recommend that you encourage them to become conscious of this, because they're going to be drawn into the process in a way that they weren't drawn into it before. And obviously they're going to want to be prepared for that. The theologically rooted Christian vision, we'll go into this in much more detail on the 20th of February, but there's just a few very quick and helpful memoirs here. As I said, adding a Bible verse doesn't make a vision to a Christian vision. Theology is more than the Bible. Obviously, the whole of the Bible falls within theology, but there's more to theology than just the Bible. It is the teachings and traditions of beliefs of the church as well. Bible verses out of context, not to be recommended. Again, your advisor can help you. Not quite sure what that means. The Christian vision is not something that operates separately from the rest of the life of the school. The strongest schools are those in which the Christian vision can be seen to be having an impact on every single aspect of the life of the school. Okay, that's just more about the rootedness of the Christian vision. You can talk to the people in your local church, might be able to help you with that. Local incumbents are often very, very helpful with that. But like I say, if you need help with this and you don't have such people in your parish, then come to your diocesan advisor and we will help you. Okay. Diocesan training for schools, November 22, July 23. So in the process of that now. So I've mentioned some training that we're doing, and you can find out more by keeping an eye on our website, talking to your advisor, and then we'll be good to go from September 2023. This is a slide that kind of sums up a lot of what I said, and that is a point at which I'm going to stop sharing with you and hand back over to Carrie. I know that really was a whistle-stop tour. There is a longer version of this featuring me and Carrie that you can watch on our website, and a fuller version of the slides that I used on our website as well. And you've got your school advisor to talk to. So we really, really want to support you and help you with this process. Thanks for listening, and I'll hand back to Carrie.
Thank you very much, Richard. We'd planned in some time to go to breakout rooms, but I'm very aware that we're getting close to the hour that we try to do this in. So we won't move into breakout rooms just to get some time back. Are there any immediate questions that you'd like to ask on that? A couple of minutes just for questions if anybody has got anything. If not, we'll move on to Mike. Nobody's waving at me. I can see no hands up. So in that case,
can I ask a question? Sorry, Carrie.
Yeah, go for it, Chris.
With regards to the judgment section, so there will now be this effective, not effective. So schools that have previously got a judgment, do they carry on until the next inspection? Then do they effectively go, or what happens with kind of during that transitional period?
Yeah, so your existing judgment will remain. So whatever that is, that will stay until you're re-inspected. But once re-inspected, whatever that judgment is will be moved away, and you'll get either judgment 1 or judgment 2.
Okay. And is it just called, what do you call it? Just we're a judgment 1 or a judgment 2 school? How do you kind of share that with?
It's not enormously poetic, is it? It sounds like the drink that you order when you're the designated driver, rather, doesn't it? Don't quote me on that one. Remember, it's not an overall judgment, so it's not like this is a good school or this is an excellent school. It's that in one or more of those 7 questions, the judgment was a J2 because there was not. So, and again, they're very careful how they phrase it. They're not saying you're not doing it. So they're not saying your RE curriculum is ineffective. What they're saying is we could not find sufficient evidence in the school to say that the RE curriculum is effective. So it doesn't give you an overall judgment. So you could end up with everything being great in 6 out of 7 questions, and then just 1 question where the evidence was not clear. And that is when SciAMS will look to us as your diocese to support you to address that, and then they will come back more quickly in 3 rather than 5 years to check that you've addressed it. But yeah, in terms of kind of how you communicate it to the school community, it is more complicated than just saying we were given a good judgment or so forth.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Chris. Right, Mike, I will hand over to you for the governance update.
I'm muted. Thank you very much. Happy New Year on this really cold winter type morning. So just a few minutes to try to help you with some of our thinking on governance across the diocese. 5 things very quickly. The first is the big elephant in the room today. How do governing boards respond to staff and schools where people join the industrial action that has been announced yesterday and today? I've just got a short note of some suggestions. The first of all is to remember that the governing board are the employers, especially in a voluntary aided school. In a voluntary controlled school, you act on behalf of the local authority. We have to recognise, of course, our ability to award pay is limited to the school teacher's plan and conditions document and the impact that that's having on our budget. So we will share perhaps some of the concerns, some frustrations and even anger that our school staff may be expressing and experiencing as they join in or watch the industrial action that may well happen. And whilst we may have our own particular views, personal views as governors on the planned industrial action, the first thing for us to really be sure of is that we must act with collective responsibility as a board in the usual way. I want to suggest that we may want to be very empathetic with how our staff are feeling and want to respond to that one-to-one or in some ways, perhaps by being a listening ear. But it's probably best if we try to avoid taking sides, at least publicly. This morning, government has published guidance for schools. It's important that all heads and governors, chairs in particular, are familiar with it. We need to note that the decision for school closure or being partially open for vulnerable children or providing home learning for children are operational aspects and the responsibility of the head teacher. But I did see that in that guidance, it's recommended heads consult their governors and others, but it's still the decision of the heads. In multi-academy trust, it's most likely that decision will be delegated to the school leader, but that will depend on the particular trust. So just some cautionary notes, I suppose, as we look to the next few weeks and the potential of some industrial action within our schools. Secondly, I want to ask you to remember, because some people have said to me, well, the school bill's gone or the white paper's gone. Actually, it's the bill that's been withdrawn. The paper remains policy until changed, the white paper. So the direction of travel is the same. So for maintained schools, do keep talking about what it means in the future. This is for the role of governors is to really think that through in an ongoing way. The third thing to mention is we talk a lot about well-being. We talk quite a bit in some schools about diversity and maybe touch on succession planning for chair, vice chair. I want to suggest it's broader than that. We should be thinking about who might be the safeguarding governor in a year, in 2 years' time, and any other particular roles that we establish. Otherwise, we'll just hit a brick wall because someone's retired or steps down for personal reasons or worse. So we need to keep progressing our thinking on all 3 of these areas, and some of that will come up in training later, governor training later in the term. Richard's just given us some outlines on the SIAMS changes. We are here to help you with the understanding and application of that, and I'll mention what I'm doing for governors in just a moment. And fifthly, we need to recognise that what support you get from me in terms of governance, I need feedback. I need to know what it is you are needing. So think about what other virtual training we might do, whether there's a need for some whole whole governing board training in your own school or in a group of schools. And if there's a need for a review of governance, do come and talk to us about those things. So 5 things I wanted to highlight for this coming term. Secondly, I wanted to launch today the concept of Governors Collective. Some of you attended Governors Chat since the autumn term of 2020. That's now ceased, and we are starting up Governors Collective, and that's an opportunity. The first one on the 22nd of March at 2:00 for governors to join together. We will reflect, we'll connect, and we will also inform. So the theme for that collective, the key thing, the input for that collective will be announced in the previous Reflect and Connect for Governors that will go out. That's the theory anyway. That's our intention. Thirdly, with SIAMS 23+, as I'm calling it, coming our way in the summer term, dates yet to be advised and to be announced. 2 sessions, one following the other over 2 weeks. The first will unpack the new framework, what it means to governors and how governors need to deal with it and prepare for it and so on and so forth. So that's a very specific session for governors. And alongside that, the following week, we will do what I'm calling demystifying theology for governors, because this term, theological rootedness, theology, what does all this mean, and how can it be, how can we as governors, whether we are experienced in the Christian faith or not, how can we understand that better? So a session on demystifying theology. And finally, I'm now producing for the Diocese of Chichester a governance podcast. And we're looking to the way in which we may partner with several other dioceses so that it becomes more generic across the Church of England provision. But for the moment, it's funded and from the Diocese of Chichester. That doesn't make it inappropriate for governors across the Diocese of Chelmsford. So, for example, the latest episode is all about being a gentleness in leadership. And part of the thinking about that is how we respond in a gentle fashion, may sound strange, but in a gentle fashion towards our staff when it relates to big and challenging and difficult issues. This is actually addressing it from a more theological perspective, if you like. So actually starting some of that thinking that we're going to need. How do we do this? Why do we do this? What's the theology behind what we do across the board in our schools? The link or the web page where you can listen to the governance podcast is at the bottom of the screen, but you can also search for it in your provider, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and so on, and listen and subscribe on those different sites. So thank you very much for your time and listening. And if there's any way in which we can help, my email is on the screen, but also will now be in the chat. Do get in touch, and thank you very much. I'll hand back to Carrie.
Thank you very much, Mike. We're almost at the end of our agenda this morning. We're just going to hear from Ruth Everett now. She couldn't be with us today, but she's pre-recorded an RE update for you. So I will just share that.
This spring term in religious education, we are continuing to support our schools to consider all aspects of the Statement of Entitlement for Religious Education 2019. Continuing to explore what it means to be religiously literate, hold that informed and balanced conversation about religion and belief, enabling our pupils to make the next step. A focus on the profile of religious education, the planning, and the progress. What does that look like in your school? How do leaders and governors in your school know? What are the topics of conversation currently? You'll all be aware of the syllabus that you follow. But the conversation now centres around how that syllabus informs your RE curriculum, the curriculum for your pupils, enabling them to make the progress, the focus of religion and belief on your locality, and how you make those decisions. What is your rationale? Why here? Why now? And how is it enabling pupils to make the next steps? RE network meetings that are held termly, and this term it's on Tuesday the 31st of January from 4 till 5, are open to all and are a time when RE leaders can come together and be signposted to things to consider. Alongside this, there's an opportunity for CPD on Thursday the 2nd of February. Learning more about a philosophical lens. What does it mean to have a philosophical lens? How can we address this in the classroom? What resources are out there to support all teachers, not just the RE lead, but even the newest person delivering the RE curriculum? Bookings for these are available through our website. RE conversation days take place termly, and on Friday the 24th of March, you are welcome to sign up to a half-hour conversation around RE in your schools. It can be discussing aspects that are on your mind, it can be sharing your practice, it can be seeking help. To book a slot, please just email me and I will send you a link. Why beyond the diocese, there are opportunities to develop CPD and ensure that all staff have access to high quality resources. If you haven't yet looked at NATRE, the National Association of Teachers of RE, and membership as a school, I urge you to do so. Membership at £170 plus VAT enables access to high quality resources and discounts on courses and webinars to ensure that all your staff are engaged in this conversation around religion and belief. Also, Culham St Gabriel offer a range of RE leadership opportunities and webinars to again stimulate thinking. And ARIAC, the Association of RE Inspectors and Consultants, are offering an early years conference at the beginning of March. Details of these organisations will be sent to your RE leads in a newsletter and will appear on our website as well as signposts to quality resources. If you are a school that is interested in raising the profile of RE, I would urge you to consider the RE Quality Mark. Please do not hesitate to be in touch if you would like further information around how to develop your RE curriculum. Your school diocesan advisors are here to support as well. And I wish you all for this spring term. Thank you.
Thank you. So that does bring us to the end of our briefing this morning. Thank you very much for your time. I know we have run over slightly, but thank you for sticking with us. If you do have any further questions and want to stay on the Zoom call to ask those, feel free. But if not, we wish you a wonderful rest of the week. Thank you very much.